I'm Sharon. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I've been thinking recently about how often it is that pupils express to me how surprised they are at just how much time you have to spend practicing, how much practice and work is involved in learning to play an instrument and mastering the techniques of an instrument. And I wonder sometimes if it's to do with the way we classify the subject. We now consider music to be part of the arts and the humanities, but that's not always been the case. And apparently in about the the 1800s, in that sort of Victorian period of investigation and exploration, music was classed as a science. And that seems strange to our ears now, but not necessarily when you just think about it. Think about the science of the production of sound. You know, we have the physics of sound waves and hertz and megahertz, and I'm afraid my knowledge runs out at this point. I'm not really great on physics at all. I do remember in school learning something about nodes and antinodes and the production of a sound wave, and so that does tell you how scientific music in itself is. And if you think about the tuning, we now tune at A440 concert pitch, but that's not always been the case. It wasn't always standardised. Baroque orchestras, Baroque instruments, the tuning was much lower. I think it was a good semitone lower, which is really helpful when you're singing all those top A's if you're singing with a Baroque orchestra. But nowadays we sort of tune higher to 440, but even then it wasn't standardised, so you could have different orchestras playing at different pitches so long as they were sort of in tune together. It was only sort of over the recent few hundreds of years that we've standardised that, and so that does sort of exemplify how scientific music is, but not just only in the production of sound, but think about, you know, the formulas that you must learn and the maths in regard of note values and techniques and sort of rhythm patterns and so on. It does get quite mathematical, and if you get further down the line and start looking at Bach chorales and sort of four-part harmony and Baroque harmony, then actually it's really mathematical. However, the beauty of Bach is he's so very mathematical, but then the beauty of the music takes over as well. He sort of epitomises how it's better to think of it as a mix of the two. And I think as well perhaps we misrepresent the term arts as well, because even in art itself, if you think about any artist would need to learn various formulas like the laws of perspective, how to mix colours, you know, colour theory, and also how to use the different mediums, sort of whether it's oil paint or watercolour or silk screens printing. I've put some photographs. My husband's an artist, and I've put a few examples of the different artworks that he's done, and you can look on his YouTube channel as well. You'll see that in the link and in the description. And so even in actual art we still have to learn formulas and so on, and I think we misunderstand the term art and we think of sort of a splurge of creativity and a flash of inspiration, and we forget that then follows sort of a lot of hard work and learning your craft and developing a skill. They always say, don't they, there's this famous saying of art, or any work of art, is 1% inspiration and then 99% is perspiration, just working through it and you know, sort of developing that skill to complete the final piece. And it's the same with everything, isn't it? Everything requires practice, whatever it is you're wanting to do, whether you're learning to knit or you're learning to sew. I do lots of embroideries and it takes a long time, you know, and by no means there I'm such an amateur, but you know, I'm learning stitches and learning techniques and learning that I need to sort of stretch the fabric in a certain way. So I think perhaps it's more helpful to think of music as a mix of art and science. We have to get the maths in place, we get the scientific aspects in place, we learn the note values, we learn the notes, we sort of go over the formulas of the fingering patterns and the techniques to get all the nuts and bolts in place. And so that's kind of the sort of the day in day out practice of it. And then once you've got those nuts and bolts in place, it's not the end of the story. Then we get that sort of extra artistic side where we lift the music off the page and we start to make the music sing out and tell a story. You know, we need to think about the expressive touch, the articulation, the dynamics. you know, which bit's important, bringing out the tune, keeping the accompaniment quiet and all of those things. And so I just think it's perhaps helpful to think of music as a mixture of art and science, and maybe then we won't be quite so surprised at the fact that it doesn't sort of fall under our fingers easily. We have to work at it, and we have to work at our craft just like anything else that we need to do. So I wonder if that would be helpful. I've been thinking about this for quite a while. I thought I'd just share my thoughts with you. I hope that's helpful in the way you think about your practice and the way you approach your music. Thanks for listening. See you next time. Bye.